Network Entertainment.
Hi, I'm Pio Ontiveros, and this is Let's Talk. On this show, on this podcast, what we do is we unbox, unpack, and decode. And what we're going to talk about today is the Ateneo Way, or what's going on with the Ateneo de Manila University. Everybody knows what happened on June 8th, that accident, the tragedy in the Bacolao, Aurora. That involved the Ateneo men's basketball team. My guests on this episode, I'll start from my right. First is Bill Velasco, Ateneo alumni, alumnus.
Hi, Pio.
Batch what?
86.
86. Okay. And of course, Bill is a very famous sports journalist. Tama ba? Did I describe you correctly?
Part of the furniture.
Part of the furniture. Okay, mga 2-3 batches ahead of me in Ateneo. And to Bill's right is someone who's always on the show. The last time you saw him here on Let's Talk was Christmas, because we always do a Bukas Palad Music Ministry Christmas special. Norman Agatep. But Norman's not here because of Bukas Palad. Norman's here because he heads Grupo Agatep, a reputable public relations firm. Because ang kasama sa pag-uusapan natin syempre is how Ateneo handled the controversy or the situation. And to Norman's right, to your left, at the very left, is of course Naveen Ganglani, another sports journalist, podcaster also, and you have a column also, right? And your podcast is
My podcast is called the Navs Effect Podcast, and
The
I
Navs
am the
Effect.
managing editor for All Star Magazine.
okay. And then Bill, what's your podcast?
I have
Show.
the Basketball Universe PHL. I also have a daily radio program on DWAN.
Okay. And Norman, your podcast?
No, I don't. I'm here. I'm with you.
You should have a podcast soon
We
for
should work on
music,
it.
di ba?
That's right.
For music and PR. Well, anyway, sige. So like I said, no, parang and the reason why I use parang the Ateneo way, because that's for us Ateneans, di ba? We always say parang the Ateneo way. So first, my first question will be, and I know it sounds funny, pero I want to know kasi where you were on June 8th, Monday, when you first heard about this incident in in Aurora. So where were you at the time? What were you doing that day? What was your first reaction? The first thought? What did you do immediately? Ano yung mga dapat kasi, yung mga ganun. Di ba, usually when we're confronted with shocking news, it's all, kasi dapat ganito, ganyan, di ba? Yon. So yun na muna, Bill. Can
I
you
was
start
actually in Madrid
that? Okay.
when this happened. So it added sort of another layer of detachment. No?
Yeah.
Ako normally kasi I try not to react emotionally to these things. I felt
Siyempre,
bad.
journalist, di ba?
Oh, yeah, yeah. And I felt bad because, I'm an Atenean, my brother's an Atenean, my 3 children are Ateneans. And for this to happen, I was surprised,
Microphone.
but not surprised that it happened, because I knew how the basketball team was being run. So parang
You knew specifically how that
might
boot camp
have,
was being
yeah,
run.
it might have been inevitable for this to happen, because things were gradually unraveling already with the basketball team.
Yeah, okay. Parang this was an accident waiting to happen,
Yes.
literally and figuratively. Okay. No, Norm, wait. Yung ano mo, meron ba ka bang dapat kasi? Meron ka bang thoughts na gano'n na?
Oh, it was only after the next couple of days, no, nung walang nagsasalita
Yeah.
on the part of Ateneo. There was no face to what was going on. No, nobody was
Yeah.
stepping forward to take to take calls and questions for the university. That was the only big question mark I had. Why and who would do it?
Okay. Norman, ikaw?
Well, I was working from home, no, and because people who work from home, their main source of information would be group chats, Messenger, and Viber. So I was receiving, "Oh, have you heard? Have you heard?" No, and because unlike Bill, who had previous knowledge of what the training might. I had zero knowledge, so my instinct was to research, and I couldn't find anything, not much. No,
Yeah.
only hearsay from people who had heard from somebody else,
Yeah.
and were sharing through group chats. So that's all I knew. And like Bill, I was waiting for news to come out, no, and
Yeah.
it took several days before that happened.
Oo. And then, syempre, Ateneo alumni, so medyo masakit.
Oh,
Parang ganon.
syempre.
Oo.
Syempre, it was very disturbing because I don't remember of well, apart from perhaps yung law school decades ago, no, hazing them.
1991, Lenny Villa.
There you
Yeah.
go, no. But apart from that, I don't remember of any major crisis that had happened involving the Ateneo. This magnitude.
Yeah. And 2 deaths pa. Naveen, ikaw. Syempre, Salle. I forgot to say. De La Salle alumni. Okay.
Well, it was a Monday, June 8th. I remember the weekend I was really busy. I was covering some sports events. So I'd actually promised my wife that evening that we'd have a romantic evening together. So I just got out of the shower. We were going to have dinner. And I checked my phone. I was supposed to put my phone down for the night. Once in a while, I do that just to unwind. And I have a group chat for my podcast community. And someone sent the statement of Ateneo, which had released just 5 minutes prior. And we all know this. 5 minutes sometimes in the media world could be eternity
Yeah,
at that
right.
point. There's so much catching up to do already. I saw it and I saw that 2 students had passed away. But more importantly, 2 young boys had passed away. And immediately it was shock, it was questions, it was sadness. But Bill knows this as a journalist. There's a part of our mind that we compartmentalize right away.
We're able to, parang that distance. No?
Yes,
We're able
exactly. Where we
Yeah.
say, okay, take the emotions aside for a second,
Yeah.
put your feelings aside, and put your journalist cap on, and figure out, okay, what happened. So, first thing I did was apologize to my wife. I said, I'm sorry, but I don't think I'll get to have a romantic night with you tonight, and probably for the next few nights until who knows when. And I send out messages. First messages I sent out to were the players of the team because
to. Who specifically did you message?
almost everyone I know. So
Okay.
Kiefer, who you had on your show, who was really brave with what he said. Sean Tuano, who I've known for a few years as well. The parents of some of the players as well. I just wanted to make sure first that
That
all
they
the
were
other kids were
yeah.
okay. Because at that point, rumors were coming around that,
Yeah.
you know, in addition to the 2 boys who passed away, other boys nearly drowned and passed away too. And later on that night,
Or ICU or
exactly. Later on that
resuscitated.
night, I heard from a source that, you know, someone told me the words that if some members of the team didn't act right away, we could have lost half the team. Half of the team could have passed away. And
Yeah.
when you hear something like that, it's
Yeah.
wow, right? And I kept thinking, you know, I obviously am not a veteran like these 2 gentlemen next to me, but I've been around for 12 years in the sports media scene in the Philippines. I could never remember a story or something like this happening to this magnitude. So, you know, like many of the people online, even I was desperate for questions. I mean, for answers to questions like what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, I had prior knowledge of these horror Aurora camps that some players have told me about before. And by the end of the night,
And you thought about that, right? Parang
I did,
bumalik
yeah.
ka agad sa...
because that same night too, people online were already posting snippets and videos of former players being interviewed and talking about the camps.
Right,
So it doesn't take a genius to put one and one together and realize, oh my God, this is gonna be a big thing. But I just remember, I think I went to sleep at around 3 a.m. that night, and
Pero walang sagot, no? Sina Sean,
No,
sina
they-
Kiefer, the parents, nobody was answering.
Well, to be fair, Tita, also, I didn't ask them what happened when I messaged them that night. The first thing I asked them was, are you okay?
Are you okay? Yeah.
Are you safe? If
Okay.
you need anything, if there's
Yeah.
anything I
Did
can
they
do, please let me
answer?
know.
Yung tanong mo na, are you
Some
okay?
of them did answer. Some of them answered the next day. Some of them answered days later. But once I knew that they were safe, that was what was most important to me.
Yeah.
Not just as a friend, but also as a journalist. The fact that they're safe is important to know. But what I'll never forget that night, personally, if I could share an anecdote, is
Sure.
3 a.m. I went to the room. My wife was asleep. Picked up my 7-month-old son, who we just had recently, and I hugged him so tight, and I started tearing up because at that moment I just tried to imagine what the parents of these 2 boys must have felt at that very moment. The anger, the sadness, the confusion, and until today, when I think of that, it's just so heartbreaking.
Di ba parents shouldn't be burying their children? Di ba? Yeah. That night we was this yung batch, 'di ba? Norman, our batch, no. We were kinukulit ko yung ibang mga those who are really close to the team na can we account for all the boys because it's exactly all those rumors na merong ICU whatever no. Please account for every one of them. So it was a struggle because we couldn't really contact anyone, right? But my next question kasi is at that point or at what was it that night or in the days that followed, parang were you convinced already na aksidente lang siya? I mean, of course, preventable and avoidable, but was that what you had in mind, Bill? Or
For
no?
me, this was not an accident.
Okay.
Because one, you don't conduct trainings in an uncontrolled environment. No, when Muhammad Ali first, started the trend of aqua training, he did it in a pool.
Pools. Yeah.
To improve his explosiveness, his reaction time, his speed. Michael Jordan even did it with shoes on when he was recovering from a broken foot, and even most military training in the world, which is obviously at the highest level already, they use deep pools. With the soldiers or the candidates at the bottom of the pool holding on to dumbbells to hold their breath as long as they can. Then they let go when they surface and they need, to breathe. But I have never heard of a sports team doing this in open water. So that was the first thing that crossed my mind. Sabi ko, ba't dun ginawa? And secondly, I knew that day the weather was not particularly peaceful. And third, what went through my mind was, my God, if that had been my two sons, because my two sons played for Team B of Ateneo for 3 years, I said, there's going to be hell to pay. Because syempre, inalagaan mo, pinalaki mo, you fed them
Anak
all
mo,
their lives,
yeah.
and then I cried when they graduated from college. So I could feel what these parents were feeling, and it hadn't happened to me. No, so the next thing I was looking for was who would emerge. No,
Who's
who
going to
would,
be the face of
yeah,
Ateneo?
who's gonna,
You wanted to hear from
yeah,
Ateneo,
yeah,
but
yeah.
there was a statement Monday night.
Yeah, but again, that's words on paper, no words on the screen. So what you're expecting is someone to put a brave face on it, and for the meantime, may probably take the heat, answer the questions, clarify, calm everybody down, because there was a void. It was suddenly filled with hate, anger, disappointment.
All these crazy
Yeah,
theories.
all these people who don't like Ateneo.
Yeah.
It became like a war cry for a lot of people, which I felt was unfair to Ateneo.
Yeah. Norman, ikaw, yung feeling mo, aksidente yan? Or like Bill was saying, avoidable, preventable?
Well,
And then
if-
your thoughts, the first night.
So for a non-athlete who graduated from the Ateneo, was there since prep until college plus an extra year, my first thought was to give them the benefit of the doubt. No, parang hindi naman siguro. No,
Yeah.
it's denial. No, you cannot parang having been in this institution for the longest time, being taught the values that I carry today. Denial talaga. Until these, pero parang chismis nga, until these videos came out of former players nga who had gone through a similar experience before, then suddenly these doubts creep into your mind as well. And that's when I started saying, no, sige, baka naman there's something deeper here that we don't know about. And that's why you crave that information that's missing. No? But sa umpisa talaga, hindi ko matanggap eh.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's really difficult.
Yeah, syempre. Tapos alumni pa. Naveen, same for you?
Well, when you hear more and more of the players talk about it, at least back in the day, while it was happening late 2010s when Ateneo was hitting the peak of their basketball dynasty, it's kind of easy to brush it aside then, right? Like,
Yeah, parang,
Okay,
okay,
yeah,
nag-champion naman eh. Parang
yeah,
ganun.
nag-champion. So
Yeah.
maybe the training is helping them win, right?
And we didn't have a real full grasp of that training at that time, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I didn't know na ganoon. Diba?
Exactly. And at that time too, the guys who were representing Ateneo and winning these championships were the Ateneo boys who had been there since the high school program. Right? Now, over the course of time, you hear more and more horror stories about it. But as the team is winning, as the program is succeeding, it doesn't feel as significant, at least compared to what it is now. But then as we get to the early 2020s, more and more players, especially as Ateneo starts falling from the top of the hierarchy of the UAAP, it gets louder. And in fact, a former Ateneo player who was since transferred or left the school told me that while this training camp was not the main reason why he left Ateneo, the dread of looking forward to what was going to happen in these camps led him, or rather convinced him further to leave Ateneo. Because now, I have not.
Yung dread, sinabi, some
Yeah.
of the players said something like that, no? Yung mga
Yeah,
na-interview before.
that-
Parang kinatatakutan.
They hate it. Like, if I can mention this, like, they hated it. Some of them didn't see the point of it, right? Especially as Ateneo started losing, where, okay, like for example, who are the other teams who have won UAP college championships? UP, LaSalle, the last few years. They don't have training camps where they're
None?
training in open water.
None like that?
Nothing like that. Nothing. In fact, I have spoken to a strength and conditioning coach for a UAAP team, and he says that this kind of training camp where you break the body down is counterproductive to strengthening and conditioning student athletes. Science nowadays, because we live in a sports world in 2026 where so much of research and training is science driven, data backed. And science and data show us more and more that beating the body up, pushing it to the limit, pushing it to exhaustion, yung old school strategy na, sige, pasukain mo yung players to see how tough they really are. That's counterproductive. It can cause mental hurdles. And some might say, okay, well, this training will lead you to get mentally stronger. So times during battle, you're ready for whatever comes your way. In fact, I had a source.
Yeah, that's training for para sa sundalo. Yung mga ganun.
Exactly. Hindi naman ito pinapagtanggol yung bansa natin versus another country with guns and M16 rifles, right? In fact, someone had told me that while it wasn't the main reason, what Coach Tab Baldwin had said after Ateneo lost the championship in season 84 was he felt because they didn't have the Belair Aurora camp training because of the pandemic, that was one of the reasons why they weren't prepared to face UP in the finals, which they lost. Well,
Yung May 20,
that was in May 2022. Yeah,
Yeah.
season 84.
Okay.
Well, I mean, the last few years, Ateneo has not made the Final Four. They've been to their training camps. What happened there, right? So now that it's come more into hindsight is always 2020.
Yeah.
But now that it's come more into a larger light, I guess the question, and this is something I asked myself too, was why didn't we take a deeper look at this? Why
Yeah.
weren't we more keen into finding out
Yeah.
if this was the right thing to do? Were we blindsided, or rather blinded by the fact that Ateneo just kept winning, so we accepted it
yeah.
as
Or
part
we
of the
parang we
routine?
swept things under the rug. Or
Exactly, yeah. And
maybe even the alumni bill, Norman, diba?
Well,
Exactly.
Yeah.
ako personally, there's this argument that they're grown men, they should be able to take this,
Grown men, they're boys, diba?
Yeah,
18 years
they're
old.
very young adults,
Very young
18,
adults.
19, 20, 21. And if you look at, studies, for example, post-traumatic stress disorder really started to explode after the Vietnam War. Why specifically the Vietnam War? Because in World War II, the average soldier was 26 years old. In the Vietnam War, the average soldier was 19 years old and exposed to hostile fire every day. So there's a big difference there. You're not mature enough. You're not thinking for yourself. You don't have a family yet. You don't have all of these, these traditional responsibilities that define manhood. And at the same time, there was increasing pressure on Ateneo because the past few years have not been the success that they've been used to. Players have been leaving to play abroad. You're getting more one and done
One and done.
players.
Bakit nga?
So
Okay.
well, again,
Yeah.
they say if you want to continue to be successful, you have to try something new. But I think this was really just too extreme. And there was a certain conspiracy of silence because nobody wants to lose their job. Nobody wants to lose their spot on the team. Nobody wants to lose their minutes. So, it
Why would there
happens to
be
all
a
of us.
conspiracy of silence?
Well, like you protect your group, in your organization, your fraternity, your brotherhood, your team.
Fraternity, ah.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, if you snitch, you could lose your spot on the team. You could lose
And
your
then
minutes. You lose your
yeah.
scholarship.
Scholarship,
Basically, your
yeah.
future's over. You might have to go back to the province, find a way to sustain your family. Whereas basketball is a clear path to that. First, you play for your school, then you represent the country or go to the PBA or the MPBL, where you will be earning way above average, and you won't have to worry about
Yeah.
your family
Yeah,
anymore.
Naveen, sorry I interrupted you kanina.
it's
Please
okay.
go ahead.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to piggyback on what Bill said too, which is there's the aspect of psychological peer pressure there.
Yeah. Yeah,
When
yeah,
you're
yeah.
dealing with 18, 19, 20-year-old boys, you said it, like young men slash boys, they're so impressionable at that point that as mentors, as coaches, as seniors, your job is to guide them and not make them feel the pressure that they have to conform to what you're making them try to do. At 18, 19, if I was a varsity athlete, I mean, I wasn't best with the basketball skills many of these student athletes are, but I could just imagine myself at that age that if I see my teammates doing it or I hear my coaches tell me you have to do this, to mi- be part of this brotherhood, my mindset would automatically be, I have to prove I'm tough enough. So I'm gonna do whatever they ask me
Parang
to do.
mahihiya ka kung hindi mo kayang gawin.
Exactly.
Diba?
Lalo
Even
na kung yung mga kaibigan mo, yeah.
If your coach tells you, you get in the water, kahit hanggang dito yung you will get in the water.
Especially if your coach is berating you and verbally abusing you and challenging your manhood, which I've heard has happened in these training camps as well.
Okay.
Right?
You brought Bill said fraternity, and then you brought up the term brotherhood. So of course, and that's what really got the police, the investigators really curious. The Blue Eagle Band of Brothers, so B-Bob, and that came out nung panahon nga ni Coach Tab, right? And I mean, for us alumni basketball fans, it sounded wow, it's like bebop, but we didn't really associate it kasi with the training camp. We didn't. Was that what they were trying to do? I mean,
Well, again, when you emphasize brotherhood, we got each other's back and all of that. That carries certain unwritten laws. That you follow the rules of the pack. Basically, you don't want to talk about what they're doing wrong or what your doubts are about how things are being run. You just want to belong. You want to be part of it. And I just wanted to point something out, no, that I don't think has been given enough attention. Tab Baldwin is not an Atenean.
yeah, yeah, we
Okay?
know that,
He's
diba?
not even
Yeah.
not even a Filipino. So there's a certain aspect of the kind of values that you have. What impressed Ateneo about Tab Baldwin is work with the New Zealand Tall Blacks. And again, a national team or even a commercial team overseas is not the same as a student varsity athlete, young boys team in the Philippines. The values are different. We don't really believe in breaking people down and doing things that perhaps 3, 4, 5 years down the road they may be able to do. But now you're putting so much pressure on them that they psychologically they'll break down, physically they could break down, and it will take even longer for them to recover.
Yeah. Okay. After the incident, na lumabas, para bang the next nightmare for me and even for so many other media who were covering this was all these questions about compliance. So, Ched, for example, nagpadala na ng show cause order just a few days ago. Tapos all these questions about were any laws violated, anti-hazing, and then syempre revised penal code because may dalawang namatay, di ba? So, I mean, siguro for us it was, I don't know, maybe difficult kasi Ateneo, alumni tayo, no? Parang, you mean to tell me somebody broke some laws? Parang ganon. Was that, Norman, when you're a PR guy and then you have to deal with something like this, what would your first, order of the day be?
Well, Bill already mentioned it. What happened, in my opinion, was that there was a big vacuum that was not filled by Ateneo, but was filled instead by speculation from everybody
Yeah.
else. So I think there was really a need for someone to front this and to be the face of the institution and to provide that information that we were all craving. I can imagine that an institution like the Ateneo, baka nahihirapan din dahil nga, no, you have to balance a lot of things. So, being prudent legally, being responsible as an institution, but at the same time, also giving what the public desires, and that's information.
Yeah.
And sometimes, because you're trying to balance all of that thing, may maiiwanan at maiiwanan eh. So ang naiwanan was not being able to provide that information that people were craving. Perhaps they were very careful, I guess, not to put out information that was not verified, which is also good.
But you can still say, no, we don't have that information
go.
yet. But
Even
just
that,
somebody come up
Right.
and to the mic and
Exactly.
why didn't they get you to talk na lang, or di ba?
Right.
Yikes.
But you're right eh, kasi silence does not remain empty. It's going to be filled up by something sooner or later, no? So mabuti na lang kung ikaw na mismo ang magpuno, no? So even simple information like we're on top of this, we will get you information within the next 12 hours is enough, even if you don't have that information yet.
Pero so in other words, yung mga written statements, hindi enough yon.
No,
Or
eh.
at least for the first night, parang feeling ko, sige, okay lang first night.
Yes, but sooner or later iba yung dating ng tao eh, no? Facing the music and really show it, kasi the empathy doesn't come from the words on a holding statement that's published on social media eh. The empathy is also seen in the presence of someone who represents the institution and really declaring that
Okay,
empathy.
so you're a PR expert. So why would any institution choose to remain silent?
I think, as I mentioned, no, baka they were just trying to be too careful. No? Maybe they didn't want information out there that was not verified or vetted. Maybe they were listening to too many voices. The Jesuits, the Board of Trustees. Baka maraming layers.
But they had lawyers, legal advice. There was a PR firm that was helping them.
Baka nga sobrang dami na eh. But
Yeah.
parang maybe the first thing really to do was just to show up first, no? And demonstrate your empathy.
But who would have been that perfect face?
For me, it would have been Father Bobby
Father
immediately.
Bobby. Okay.
A crisis at this level, dapat yung top na it feels different if you send someone lower, given that 2 deaths had happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
It deserves, I think, the highest person involved.
At saka also, I think part of the vacuum, to be fair to Ateneo, is they were also moving behind the scenes. No? They were
Yeah.
trying to find out what was happening. They were trying to support the families, provide counseling for the players. Even that could have been a
Communicated.
Yes.
first
Oo.
blast of information that we're doing. Like Norman said, we're doing what we can. We're trying to handle
they
the
put that
situation.
in the statement, in the second statement that came out
pero
on Tuesday. Iba pa rin.
Pag boses ng tao, may mukha talaga. Kasi that's why, in for example, the broadcasting industry, you never see the host of the show walk out of the set or leave because people don't like that feeling of being abandoned or being left. No, so people are looking for direction, and I feel perhaps one of the few things that Ateneo could have done better is really channel all that energy into a more constructive, more positive direction.
Yeah, because we're hearing things that, apparently Father Bobby already had approached the families early on, but then was hesitant to have that videoed or, But again, because of that, the people don't get anything.
Yeah.
It becomes just hearsay or it just becomes a statement on
At
social
kahit
media.
nasabihin niya nung humarap siya sa NBI a few days back, tapos he was saying, I was with them, we were communicating. Parang hindi nag-register because it was too late.
Correct.
Ganun ba?
No? And then it feels therefore like they're being evasive or they're hiding something because they were not present.
Okay. On Friday, June 12, that's when they released a video statement of Coach Tab. How did that pan out?
Well, for me,
Yeah.
nauna pa si Coach Tab, di ba? Well, of course, dapat lumabas at lumabas din yun, no? But I think that was a step after dapat eh.
Yeah.
For
Oo.
me, it should have been the Ateneo
But-
represented by...
Yeah, but on that same day, when they released the video statement of Coach Tab, nag-statement ang Ateneo, nag-release ng press statement saying na they asked Coach Tab to keep quiet because there would be an institutional response. Can you explain to us the PR? Because
It's
ganun ba
difficult
ang
to
PR?
explain,
Ano?
Pia.
Oo.
I mean,
You're-
if I had run it, I would not put Tab first.
Si Father Bobby.
Father Bobby pa rin.
Yeah, oo.
You know? But although I can see...
But if you were running it, would you have, okay, release natin si statement ni Coach Tab, tapos sabihin natin na pinatahimik namin siya for 4 days muna. Would you do that?
no.
No.
It feels again evasive eh. Yeah, I know that they didn't want Coach Tab to say anything that might implicate anyone. But then the first the first face that should be out there should be the face that represents Ateneo and not
Yeah.
just the team or the
Yeah.
program athletic
Yeah.
program.
Naveen? Were you, I mean, di ba, as a journalist, so you're waiting for all that information and then it's coming out in trickles or it's all chismis and then there's social media. Ano yung feeling mo? What were you waiting for? What did you want Ateneo de Manila University to do?
But all due respect, of course, to what Sir said, I actually think the first face we should have seen was Coach Tab. Personally.
On day 1, no?
Maybe not day 1, but
Day
day 2.
2, June 9.
Now,
Yeah.
Rene Butterbonia's manager in Manila, his name is Anthony Brodette. He runs an agency called Phenom Sports Management. He was on my podcast a few days ago. And what he said just broke my heart because he said until today, Coach Tab Baldwin has not faced in person the parents of Rene Butterbonia.
But isn't that because, this is what I just heard, na ang humarap kasi sa parents ni Rene Butterbonia nung ni-recruit siya was not Coach Tab, but Epoch Kimpo, the team manager.
Yes, and
But, so does that make sense? Na,
and-
kaya hindi si Coach Tab pumunta sa kanila dahil...
no, I get that.
Then-
And Epoch also bears responsibility here as a team manager. But based on my experience covering college basketball, particularly recruitment in college basketball,
It's the
the
coach.
parents of the players entrust their kids to the head coach. Because who is the one who will spend time with the players, their kids, their children every single day? It is the head coach. The head coach recruits, and this isn't recruitment for pro teams, it's for college teams. The head coach is supposed to be the second father.
Yeah.
Especially for a player who leaves his hometown province in search for a better life to be a breadwinner for his family. Coach Tab Baldwin should have faced the parents right away. And Brodette said this in my podcast, kung sasampalin ka ng mom, be a
You
man
have to
and take it.
Yeah.
Ano, sisigawan ka? Kaawayin ka? Sasampalin ka? You take it. At that point, it is justified. And now, I have the utmost respect for Ateneo as a school and as an institution. You all know this from our time as friends. The mistake there, in my opinion, was this was treated as a PR problem, but it was a human issue. A human issue. And it goes back to what I said, the head coach is the second father.
Yeah.
You don't wait until Friday to talk in what was probably an edited video that was released, shot in a basketball gym,
Blue Eagle Gym.
Blue
Yeah,
Eagle Gym with the Ateneo shirt. Yes, I guess that's fine. But this was a human issue. What I felt personally and what I feel mirrors what many others felt emotionally was there was a lack of empathy in terms of the timing on when the face of the basketball program would speak. Because yes, Father Bobby Yap is the president of the school. Epoch Kimpo is a team manager of the Blue Eagles. But who is the face? Who has been the voice of the Blue Eagles basketball program for the last decade? It is Coach Tab Baldwin. It is not right that the first time we see you is when you're in a photo of the wake of the players and you haven't spoken to the public yet. That is your responsibility, not just as a head coach, but as a human being. Whether or not the school tells you keep quiet, don't say anything yet, no. You speak right away because you are their parent at this point. They entrusted the lives of their kids to you.
Yeah.
So we should hear from you right away.
So it was, yeah.
I just imagine how powerful and how healing it would have been if off the bat we see Coach Tab with the parents of the players who drowned, you know, commiserating with them, apologizing to them in particular. And that would have softened a lot
Yeah.
of what happened
Yeah.
and showed people that he was personally taking responsibility for what happened.
Okay. But like Naveen, earlier you were saying, diba? So hindi lang ito PR, pero human empathy
Yes.
issue. The way the whole thing was handled, if you will. Yeah.
Yes, and
okay.
you know, a partner on my podcast, his name is Paulo Perez, he said this too. The reason why so many people online and throughout the Philippines feel heartbroken about this is because Rene Baterbonia's story, and to some degree, Divine Adili's story, mirrors what many Filipinos feel. Hard beginnings, trying to climb out of poverty in search for a better life. Sacrificing. Like, do you think these kids would have... Like, Baterbonia did not want to leave his home province.
Yeah.
If it were up to him and they had the financial resources, he would stay with his family. He would help his parents raise his siblings. But he
Yeah.
came to Manila because they needed a better future. So that's where the human aspect of this comes. And this is why so many Filipinos are so angered, because it mirrors so many of their journeys. And
Yeah.
they can imagine what it would feel if that happened to them. Which is all the more reason why Tab Baldwin, as the face of the program, like Bill said, if he speaks right away, maybe there's understanding. He will not get everyone's forgiveness. That went out of the window the moment those two kids drowned. But if he had spoken right away, rather than us waiting 5 days and having that anger build up
Yeah.
so much,
Yeah.
then maybe it would have been slightly better. And at that point, slightly better would have made a lot of impact, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna see Coach Tab Baldwin show up in some podcast before he speaks in person to the parent of the kid who died. I mean, is it just me, or does that make no sense at all?
No, it's not just you. It's,
It's
not
a,
just
it was
you.
a defensive posture. And
Yeah.
ako, you know, in addition to that, no, I think more attention should also be placed upon the response of Father Carol San Juan of Ateneo de Davao. Not
Yeah.
because he's a classmate, but he's done everything right. You know, he's
Right.
taken care of the siblings. They renamed the gym after
He
after
embraced
Bobet.
he
Yeah.
embraced Mrs. Butterbonia.
And that,
Yeah.
I think, caused an avalanche of support and help for the family. You know, you have, of course, there are politicians who cannot avoid the limelight, pero tumulong sila eh.
Oo.
You know, and now they're pretty set, at least
Oo.
for the immediate future.
Pero yun na nga yung masakit eh. So Carol is Ateneo de Davao, di ba? Of course, home school of Bobet Butterbonia. Pero sa Ateneo de Manila ipinagkatiwala si Bobet, di ba? Tapos yung Ateneo de Davao, yung was the one that gave a human face, was the one that showed the empathy, right, Norman? I mean, and then, you know, it parang it's so hard for Ateneo de Manila to catch up with.
Exactly.
Ateneo
No,
de
suddenly
Davao,
there was a
parang-
tale of two Ateneos. No?
Yeah.
And for me, that was what was partly heartbreaking for me, was to see that division.
Yeah.
It could have just, I mean, but yes, no, certainly what the Ateneo de Davao demonstrated was heart, which sadly Manila was not able
Yeah.
to show.
But isn't that what we were taught, di ba?
Yun na nga.
Magis, AMTG.
Well, I
down
think
from
also
division.
to be
Man for
fair
others.
to Ateneo de Manila is when you hire somebody to do a job,
Yeah.
you pretty much leave them to their own devices in how they accomplish the goals that you've set for them, or else they won't. You'll replace them with somebody else. And 4 championships in 10 years is a pretty solid statement. Now
Yeah.
they don't and can't monitor everybody. Like you don't have somebody reviewing a teacher's performance in the classroom.
Yeah.
You don't have anybody monitoring all the other sports teams.
Oo.
So it's basically
Yeah, but no, but
that's
like
how things are run.
Yeah, but like we said at the start of the podcast, parang this was an accident waiting to happen. Diba? We would get bits and pieces of information about what Aurora was like, what this boot camp was like.
Yeah, but at the same time, you don't well you don't punish a corporation or a group for hiring somebody 10 years ago.
Yeah.
No,
Okay. Oo.
that's like saying your son does something when he's an adult. Does that make it your fault? So at the end of the day, Ateneo trusted their judgment at the time, and I assume most of
Yeah.
the higher ups didn't know
Yeah.
what was going on within the team itself.
Hi, I'm Victor Anastasio of Comedy Manila. Are you looking for positive vibes and inspiration in your daily life? Di wag kang makinig sa podcast ko dahil baka mabwisit ka lang. Intellectual Wall with Victor Anastasio. Ano bang pinag-iisipan at pinapag-complainan ng isang komedyante? Ano ba ang isang stand-up comedian sa Pilipinas sa likod ng tabing ng entablado? Yan ang i-reveal natin sa Intellectual Wall with Victor Anastasio, produced by the Pod Network.
I wanted to go back just a bit to what Naveen was saying, di ba? Yung, di ba, naging Mindanao versus Imperial Manila, the rich versus the poor, yung mga ganon. Dumating tayo sa puntong yon na, of course, and I can't say just on social media because it's online and offline, di ba? I mean, it got that bad na, people were criticizing Ateneo na, come down from the hill, stuff like that. Diba? How could we have, for lack of a better word, how could we have dropped the ball? Norman.
Well, I go back to my thinking that perhaps Ateneo de Manila was just overly cautious. I don't think, parang hindi ko matanggap na they would purposely not show empathy. I cannot, in my heart, I cannot believe that this was something they did intentionally. I think it was just a difficulty in managing such an overwhelming kind of crisis and forgetting, as Naveen had mentioned, that this is a story of humans and that we should, kasi ako when I deal with crisis, my first instinct is to think what would I have done if this was a personal crisis. If, let us say, I was hosting a party, I had a pool at the backyard, and two kids of a neighbor
Oh my
drowned
God,
there.
Yeah. Oo. Yeah.
And then it becomes natural na, syempre, kakausapin ko yung mga magulang, I'll find a way to, But then that's me.
Yeah.
But Naveen is right. I think instinct should drive us to remember that these are persons involved in this crisis, and we need to deal with them as persons too. Despite the fact that we're such a big institution,
Yeah.
I think we perhaps the fault there, where we probably dropped the ball, was thinking that and we need to protect ourselves so much because there's a lot at stake. But in so doing, we forget the more important part of this story.
Di ba, Norman, we both taught in Ateneo. So, di ba, may grades tayo, di ba? We give A, B plus, B, C plus, C, D, or an F, or a W for withdrawal. What grade would we give our alma mater?
Mahirap naman yan.
We could skip to the...
There are some things that they did right, I think.
Like which ones?
Well, they did show empathy somehow, but this was not covered by media. That's
Yeah.
that's what I'm told. No,
Which one? What?
a father, for example, speaking with the mother of Robert.
Yung pagpunta niya sa Arlington. Okay.
There was some, and of course, acknowledging that this happened, and
Yung press ko niya nung Monday, June 15.
Yes.
yes,
That's the only time he faced the media.
yes. Kumbaga, it happened naman.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
happened naman. albeit just too late. Yeah, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Norman. To add to that
Yeah.
too, I actually came out with a report about this on our outlet All Star magazine that Ateneo has also provided guidance counseling
There you go. Oh,
Yeah.
and psychological counseling to the players. They offered to pay for the plane fare of
The
the parents
parents,
of
no?
players abroad and in the province. They've also provided lodging for the parents to stay near their boys in campus. And I know some people might find this trivial or not exactly something worth noting, but to some of these boys who have leaned on basketball their whole lives as a method of peace, Ateneo has opened the Blue Eagle gym for them to shoot. Not practice, but just shooting to escape everything going on. Because
Yeah.
I think it's also remember to important here that survivor's guilt is
Yes.
very strong.
Yeah. Yeah.
In-
That's what Keith and Sam were saying on the podcast.
Exactly. The survivors have to deal with the rest of their
yeah.
lives of seeing the lifeless bodies of their teammates. How do you help an 18, 19-year-old kid through that? Tapos pagdating nila sa bahay, may death threats.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you see people online saying, sinadya mo patayin yung teammate
Yeah.
mo.
Or inggit, mga
Wala, like,
ganun.
what? Sorry, I almost cursed it.
No.
I almost cursed, sorry.
Or
but
sana ikaw
Sige,
na
go
lang.
ahead.
diba?
sana ikaw na lang. Like,
Yeah. Oo.
wala ba kayong
That's
brain
inhuman.
cells?
Oh,
Like,
that's
really?
inhuman. Yeah,
Really?
I think also I've said this before. I think the Philippines may not be mature enough to handle social media. I think it's like handing a kid a loaded gun. No, so we
Oh God,
we
we just
react
had that Tacloban school shooting.
we handled this emotionally and we spew bile onto everybody. But again, as Naveen said, this is a human situation. There is no handbook for dealing with something like this, and the school never
You just
had.
need good EQ.
Yeah, the school never had the
Emotional
intent
quotient.
of hurting anybody.
Yeah, oo.
They said this person would be the best way for us to win championships, and for a while he did. And then again, the system eventually breaks down because people get sick and tired of being treated that way, being pushed to beyond their physical and psychological limits. So now what we have to address, I think, and Ateneo is doing this, is the mental status of the players. No, I mean,
Yeah.
letting them play basketball, letting them try to forget what happened, and I think inevitably let it be a personal choice whether to keep on playing for Ateneo in the UAAP.
Okay, we're gonna go back to that in a while. But before we talk about that, CIDG already recommended violation of anti-hazing, and then syempre yung homicide, no. So may mga kaso na. And again, ang iniisip ko kasi dumating sa puntong ito, if we had, and I was just thinking, if we had handled this better much earlier than later, baka hindi ganito kagrabe. Am I right? Or is
Well,
that
I think it still would have happened.
yeah?
I mean,
But there would have been more public sympathy siguro.
Yeah, but
Diba?
again, that's not consequential to the wheels of justice moving,
Yeah.
of the government moving, no? So, there are so many pertinent laws here. You have the anti-hazing law. But again, they have to determine very strongly that this training was going to decide who would have been on the final roster of the team. Because I think that's the pivotal point there. Then the second one is homicide through reckless imprudence. But then you have to prove intent to harm the players, and then the third is manslaughter through gross negligence. No, so the anti-hazing hindi bailable yan eh. The other two are carry usually a maximum sentence of 6 years. So times 2, that's 12. So
Or daños eh. May daños sa ano eh.
well,
Kaya.
that's on the civil
Yeah.
side, no. That's with the families involved. No? So I think we have to let the wheels turn, but instead of pointing fingers and assigning blame, I think it's very clear to us who is responsible.
Yes.
Who designed the program? Who's been doing this for how many years with close calls, and who's kept the authorities of the school even in the dark. No, and that's Tab Baldwin, and that's the load that he has to carry and has to face from now on.
Just to add to that too,
Yeah, Naveen.
here is the question that I still need an answer to. Revealed by one of the players during the Ateneo town hall. I believe it was the same evening you released your podcast episode with Kiefer and Sam. One of the players said that before they got into the water, Ateneo head coach Tab Baldwin asked, "Does anyone here not know how to swim?" And one of the guys who passed away, Divine Adili, said he did not know how to swim. Now, there is no follow-up question to that.
Yeah.
Why that is, we don't need to get into. But I want to know if Divine Adili himself and maybe other players also who could have drowned said they didn't know how to swim, why were they still in the water?
Yeah.
What made them go to the water knowing that if anything happened, they would not know how to swim and the worst could happen, which it eventually did?
Yeah.
I
Okay.
still need, and I feel like many people still need the answer to that question right now. And the best person to answer that question is the head coach who asked who didn't know how to swim and got the answer.
Tab Baldwin. You know, during the podcast with Sam and Keith, no? So, kinuwento nila yon. So, tinanong who cannot swim. And, di ba, in the podcast, they drew I had them illustrate, no? Yung arrangement nila. They were perpendicular to the shore. Those who could not swim, they said, were put nearest the shore. Those who could swim, like sina EJ Kahipe, one of the heroes, were put near the deeper part of the water.
It's
That
still
doesn't
open
help.
water.
It's still open water.
Exactly.
They're still
There's still
under
rip
toes.
waves.
There's
Yeah.
still waves.
Yes.
And it's not the not knowing how to swim that will kill you. It's the panicking because you
Yeah.
don't know how to swim.
Yeah.
Because if you at least understand that if you don't move, you'll automatically float. Or if you know at least to move parallel to the shore instead of fighting the current,
Yeah.
you will survive. Even if it carries you far away from the shore, you're alive, and there's no more undertow in that part of the water. But even in the provinces, diba, there's a time of day when you should not swim in the
Right.
sea. There are places when you should not swim. So I think what was underestimated here was you cannot control the elements. No? You cannot control
Yeah.
the sea, and the sea will take what it wants to take.
Okay, so right now they have an interim head coach, Louis Alas. They have interim team manager, Nico Salva, one of the assistant coaches. And then there's all this talk about should we allow Ateneo to still play in the UAAP or should we suspend Ateneo? First of all, ano ba yung rules ng UAAP?
Well, I don't know if the UAAP has a rule book because I've never seen it.
Okay.
But
Si Naveen natatawa din.
theoretically,
Yeah.
The rule is,
Theoretically.
basketball and volleyball are mandatory sports.
Okay.
So therefore, there would be a domino effect. If Ateneo is suspended in basketball, the whole school, all the athletics would be suspended, which I think is unfair.
Absolutely.
One, there was no cheating involved. Two, it's
Because
although-
La Salle's case kasi,
Yeah,
sila
well,
nasuspend lahat.
I was
Yeah.
trying not to bring that up, but
But no, but Naveen was getting ready to bring it up.
I'm sure he will. But
Okay.
the other thing is, what do all of the other hundreds of athletes
Have to do
have
with
to do with this?
basketball
These
and
are
this
also what Naveen was talking about, the aspirations of these people, dreams of a better life. That's also in all of the other sports.
100%.
So the question I always put is, if the father commits a crime, does the whole family tree go to jail? Why would you do that? So it's within the purview and the prerogative of the UAAP to decide whether to just suspend the basketball program, knowing they're already hurt, already traumatized, and that basketball could be a way for them to heal, to honor their fallen teammates, or will they say, nah, it happened before, an entire sports program was suspended.
Yeah.
But then my question would be, why will we perpetuate harshness? Diba? Okay, granted, yung mga ibang schools na naparusahan noon or coaches or whatever, that was a different time. That was a different management of the UAAP. But does that mean if somebody beats you up, you beat up the next person who comes along, and so on and so forth? It will never end. An eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind.
Naveen.
So I spoke to a source recently about this topic, and like what Bill said, I think the best word to use right now is it's a transparent item, whether or not the rest of the athletics teams can compete if there's no basketball or volleyball team. From what I have heard, the best way to describe it is that depends on a case-to-case basis. The league and what the punishment, or what I guess we could say crime was.
Okay.
Maybe that's what it's leading to right
so
now.
basta walang rule na ganun talaga. Wala talaga.
Officially,
Officially.
of like super officially, no.
No,
Like,
no,
in
okay.
writing.
at least from
Okay.
what I know.
Yeah.
And from my UAAP sources, what they have told me was their own investigation and their own decision will depend a lot on the findings of the
The
government
Ateneo-
agencies involved.
Okay.
Of course, the most important here is what CHED discovers from what
Yeah.
I have heard. Because
Oo.
the different government institutions will have their own investigations, their own
Yeah.
fact-finding process.
Yeah.
But what CHED comes out with, in addition to the PNP and others, that is
Yeah.
going to play heavily to what the UAAP decides to do.
Well, number one, PNP, CIDG
Yes,
saying
exactly.
walang kasalanan yung mga bata, di ba?
Yes.
So
Definitely.
therefore, why are we gonna punish them,
Exactly.
di ba?
And we
Okay.
should remember that July 15 is the date the
Deadline.
UAAP announced for when they want to come out with their own results. Now, I just want to also bring back what Bill said, which is, okay, why is it so easy for people to say, suspend yung buong Ateneo, tanggalin yung buong Ateneo? I mean, yeah, there's some merit to it. Like maybe there needs to be a year of healing for the school and the sports community, but can we be guaranteed that the scholarships, the lodging, the allowances of the athletes of the other sports will be taken care of 100%? I'd like to think, and I'm sure you as Ateneo alums would also like to think, that Ateneo will make sure that is taken care of if it comes to that. But we need a guarantee that's what's going to happen before we decide to suspend the whole school from the UAAP. Because like Rene Batarbonia, a lot of these athletes from the provinces came for a better life through athletics, right? So it's a very tricky situation. I think right now there's just no right or wrong answer, and anyone trying to say that they're not sure themselves too. Now, Bill brought up LaSalle earlier, which of course we know what happened there. The ineligible players, the suspension, and also the loss of the championship that they won in 2004 against
Binalik
FU,
yung-
the basketball
Oo.
team. The latest word around town, at least from what I'm hearing in the sports community, the UAP community, is if Tab Baldwin did not have a work permit during the years that Ateneo won those basketball championships, then shouldn't it be discussed whether or not those championships should also be forfeited given past precedent? Personally, I don't have an answer to that question yet. I haven't reflected long enough to decide yet. But I feel like that's a debate many people are going to have moving forward.
We haven't even settled the issue about should Ateneo be allowed to play. Ito ngayon pinag-usapan, returning of the championship trophy.
No, I think Ateneo should be allowed to play. You know, at worst, the UAAP can decide to suspend the men's basketball team. But I mean, to include everybody else it would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, why you're crying out for blood because what, you feel threatened that Ateneo on paper has a strong team this year, and at the same time, you know, it's also a chance for the UAAP to say, you know, Ateneo is a valued, long-standing member that has also brought success to the UAAP. You're one of our own. We've got your back. You know, it's all a question of, again, the human perspective, empathy, understanding, compassion,
Yeah.
which
And
a lot of these schools teach.
And also to add to that, Bill, even if the men's basketball team is suspended, what happens to the seniors on that team?
Yeah.
The veteran
Yeah.
players? Because
Where are they gonna go?
yeah,
Di
the
ba?
one and done recruits
Yeah,
who
oo.
traveled from Los Angeles and other parts of the world to play basketball here. Okay, maybe the middle ground there could be, if you transfer to another school this season, wag na kayo mag-residency. At wag natin tatanggalin yung eligibility nyo. But does that mean they're guaranteed spots in other schools and other universities? No.
Let's also bear in mind, no, for most of these sports, there is no professional league to look forward to. You know, it's basketball, and if there's boxing, boxing. Unless you go into horse racing or cycling, which are also considered professional sports. Other than that, this is it. You know, they want to get a free education so they can get a good job, get paid better after college. Now, 1 year could be devastating to all of these other athletes. You know,
Yeah.
they're amateurs. Where will they go? It's not as if they could join some tournament and some athletics event internationally and earn prize money. You know, this is it. This is their last shot at catapulting themselves to a better life.
Exactly. And also, some of these teams, financially, they're not supported just by the school. They're supported by
Yeah.
outside sponsors,
sponsors.
who rely on the tournaments for advertising. So if there's no tournament or competition for
exposure.
advertising, are they going to pull their funding? And then if they do pull their funding, well, what happens to the other athletes, right? Like I said, this goes back to being a human story first of all, and you need to take the human element into it.
What about, Bill, yung sinabi kanina ni Naveen, yung pinag-uusapang isa na baka kailangang isoli yung championship trophy because of issues of yung mga work permit ni Tab, yung mga ganon. Ano yun? That's not something we need
whose fault
to...
or whose responsibility is that, no? The rules for players and the rules for coaches are different. No, assuming Tab did not get
Yung work permit
a
niya.
work permit or even a license from the Games and Amusements Board, he was already a permanent resident when those championships came along. So, hihimayin mo na lang yon, no? What he did before that, then maybe that's the part we can question. But to my mind, he didn't play. He didn't play those games. You can say he created the program, but of course, one of the reasons we like basketball is kasi may diskarte yung mga players. Diba? So you cannot separate the two anymore.
Yeah. So why punish the boys?
Yeah, why punish the boys? You know, does the whole family have to go to jail?
But then the LaSalle boys who won those championships, the eligible LaSalle boys in 2004 who won those championships, could make the same argument.
No, but
They
you're-
passed their papers. They were eligible.
No, except for those who weren't. You know, they didn't take the Philippine Educational Placement or PEP test. Even, no? And we're not even talking about the entrance exam. So they played in those games. So in that way, you're sort of diluting or tainting the victory. Now, the coach he may draft a program, but then it's up to the players how they follow it. And at the end of the day, the coach is not a player. Diba? Sabi nila, coaches players win games, coaches lose them. So if I were to be asked about that, returning the trophies, when did he acquire his resident visa, permanent resident visa, and when did they start winning those championships? Because if he got that after the second or third year, then pretty much most if not all of those championships are valid.
This nightmare has turned into a nightmare after nightmare after nightmare on so many levels and on so many issues.
Right.
And
Because it's also worth noting that Tab also played a role in coaching the national team.
yeah,
Right?
the program,
First.
no, Gilas?
The
Yeah, in
FIBA Olympic
2015.
qualifier, 2015.
Tab became the coach of Ateneo late 2015 and they won their first championship in 2017. So if he only got the residence by 2018, then does that mean 2017 has to be returned? It's a question worth asking.
Yeah, okay. I was just gonna say nga na, yung nightmare after nightmare after nightmare. And then I remember reading somewhere na parang this whole, again, nightmare, para bang kasing sama, or this crisis is comparable to the Jesuits' expulsion from the Philippines. Di ba may ganon? I mean, because we've never had it's not even just a scandal. It's like the most horrible situation possible. No, Norman? Ganon. Tama ba yun? Or is that, OA ba yun? Yung sasabihin?
Hindi rin.
Hindi.
I'd like to build on something that a colleague in the office told me. Sabi niya, moving forward, Ateneo's role now, or its job right now, is not anymore to just protect its reputation. It's to deserve it. Kasi all through these years, we've been, in the way that we've communicated ourselves, we've educated our students, focusing on magis and cura personalis and persons for others. Suddenly, kasi this crisis has exposed us and some people are saying na, oh, bakit kayo ganyan? Etong tinuturo ninyo, no? So moving forward, as we progress with this investigation, the role really will be to demonstrate that we deserve the reputation that we've built all these years. No? So in that sense, it's a big crisis. Will we emerge unscathed? Hindi naman, no? But we need to work on it nga eh. And that means perhaps, cooperating with the authorities on this, not merely reviewing our policies, but actually being transparent and showing the stakeholders what we're doing concretely to improve, and to really openly discuss this with everybody who's craving for information.
Doing what we need to improve concretely. So lately, the university has announced yung mga reform committee, tapos athletics reform.
That's a start, but that's a start. At least you have somebody who's watching over that part of the solution.
Yeah.
But what specific things are going to happen? How to mitigate risk in the athletic program? What specifically will be done to replace the existing policies? Who will be monitoring all of these things to make
Who's
sure
gonna
that
be
this happens?
accountable? That's another issue, no? The issue of accountability. So, people will say, oh, kayo mga Atenista, Ateneo de Manila University, kung makapag-demand kayo ng accountability, tas kayo mismo, hindi nyo kayang gawing accountable ang sarili yung tao. So there were, calls for, Father Bobby Yap should step down and other university officials. Is that something that should have been done or should still be done? I mean, because yung nag-create ng reform committee is Father Bobby himself. Diba? So, we will investigate ourselves, or, are we...
Yeah,
Norman?
that's quite tricky.
Help!
It's quite
help.
tricky, Pia. Especially because, early on, people have already thought what they wanted to think of Father Bobby and the people he's surrounded with. It could help if he steps down. I'm just being blunt. No? It could help. No? It's not the only possible solution. No? It's not as if we can go through this crisis with or without. Kumbaga, even if we say it could still work as well. No? But for people who've already assigned a character to the person who was not showing up at the start, we've already created in our mind the persona that he is because he was absent at the start. It could help kung he steps back. But of course, that's easier said than done. It has to be discussed with all stakeholders involved, and
well, speaking of stepping down, kasi ang nangyari, so si Coach Tab and si Epok resigned, and then people were also angry about why resigned. They should have been fired. Things like that. Bill, ano dapat yung nangyari doon?
Again, ako, it's an emotional response. At saka parang nilalahat nila, yung mga Atenista, as you pointed out. In every group, there are bad eggs, di ba? Sabi nga nila, one bad apple spoils the bunch. So in this situation, wag naman natin i-shotgun lahat sisihin natin Ateneo's institution. Ateneo will survive this. Ateneo's given so much also to Philippine society that this is horrific. Yes, it's loss of life. Yes, but in the grand scheme of things, this is not going to destroy Ateneo. It's also good and for us to have the mental exercise of, teka, sino ba nagdesisyon nito? Sino bang gumawa niyan? Sino ba ang lumikha ng sitwasyon na kinasawi ng buhay ng dalawang bata? Moving forward, I think also a feedback mechanism would be very, very important in improving things from now on. It's not like, for example, if you leave a company, you have an exit interview. Diba? Maybe at the end of each season, the players themselves can have feedback or evaluate the way things are being done. The coaches can evaluate the players. The players should have the same right to evaluate the coaches. And if there are things the coaches are doing that the players don't like, then it's something that's worth a second look. Because, buti sana kung injury lang, igagaya nito, nanganib yung buhay ng mga player. Diba? So maybe there are parameters that should be established because as Naveen pointed out earlier, other schools win championships without having to go to this extreme. So a feedback mechanism, I think, would help. And narrowing our focus. No, wag niyo nang lahatin yung mga Jesuita, yung Ateneo, lahat ng alumni,
Oo.
lahat ng sumusuporta sa
oo.
team,
So,
lahat ng
ilang,
athlete,
ilang
di ba?
Jesuita lang, ilang alumni lang, ilang coach lang, ganon.
That's
Hindi
true.
lahat.
That's
Okay.
the true. Kasi as we were talking about earlier, syempre, pag mayroong nilagay na coach dyan, lalo na kung medyo traditional siya o medyo old school, lahat natatakot eh. So pag may sinabi, run through that wall, gagawin mo kasi pinahahalagahan mo yung posisyon na hawak mo.
Yeah.
Pinahahalagahan mo yung pagkakataon na magbago ang buhay ng pamilya mo dahil dito. And there is a reason why these players want to go to Ateneo because they're guaranteed a good education. I mean, some of my classmates are department heads. And sila, sumasakit ang ulo nila pag galing sa ibang paaralan or galing sa ibang probinsya yung mga bata kasi kailangan ipasa nila lahat ng pag-aaral nila kundi igagarahe sila eh. So especially in English and even Filipino sometimes for the players from the South, math, they have to work to pass their grades. So, and they want that. Yun okay sa kanila yon, yung ganong klaseng paghihirap.
Yeah.
Diba? And they signed up knowing that Ateneo is a school that adheres
Student
to this.
athlete.
Yes, student comes first. That's why there's an Ambrosio Padilla Award. It goes to the best student athlete. Na mataas ang grades tapos magaling na atleta. Diba? That's given out every year to one athlete from the Ateneo. I think one men's and one women's athlete. So wag natin lahatin. I mean, marami namang magagandang ginawa ang Ateneo. And this does not mean that everybody is accountable. Again, this is not something you can prepare for. Walang handbook, walang guidebook. Ano ba gagawin natin pag ganito? The first 12 hours, first 24 hours. Wala eh. So, pagbigyan natin ng konti na medyo baka nag-usap-usap pa, maraming ang tinig ang pinakikinggan. And it's hard to decide what's the right thing to do. For me, what's important is Ateneo took steps to take care of the families and the players, and they did not glorify themselves doing it. They came out with a statement, we're doing this and that. Ang pagkukulang lang is to put a human face, somebody who can look the camera in the eye and say, we're taking care of this. Yun lang naman eh. And everybody's reacting emotionally. Siyempre, may mga gumagatong dyan.
Yeah.
Nauunawa natin because we can all relate. Those of us who have children can relate to that. But at the end of the day, wag nating kakapitan yung mga himutok natin sa lipunan, yung galit natin sa malalaking korporasyon. I've had to answer some people online. It's a broken system that's inhuman. And what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Ateneo has a lot of corporate sponsors, but Ateneo is not a corporation. It is a school, and even educators sometimes have to learn.
We've been talking for over an hour already, so we're going to wrap up. So final words from everyone. So we'll start with Naveen Ganglani.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me here. It's been great to talk with all of you. Just going back to the last point quickly, Bill is right that what Ateneo has provided and done for the Philippine community and society for the last how many decades, there's more good than bad. I think we can say that for sure. There is a saying, if I'm not mistaken, in the school hymn of Ateneo, where the phrase goes, the Ateneo way. And I think the question that people have in mind now is, what is the Ateneo way moving forward? What is the Ateneo way after an incident such as this? We're going to find out over the next few months. Now, I have made my case of what is the case moving forward for the athletes. I don't think the athletes of other sports of Ateneo should be
Made to suffer. No?
Yes, made to suffer because of what happened in this incident. I think
even the boys of the team, no?
absolutely, exactly. What
I
happens
think many
to
of
their
us want to
future-
see them still play
Exactly.
this season.
We cannot sacrifice the long-term view for short-term fulfillment. We need to remember that. The fact that Tab Baldwin is no longer the head coach is 100% the right move. What happens to him moving forward, I will trust our local government agencies to make that decision. And my last message that I just want to share to everyone is, in a time like this, let's remember two things. One, kindness goes a long way. Let's be kind to everyone involved. And two, let's remember Rene Baterbonia and Divine Adili not as victims of a heartbreaking tragedy, but as the wonderful human beings that they were during their time on Earth, because they were absolutely wonderful human beings. I got to speak with Divine during my coverage of the UAP last season. I mean, it still makes me smile to this day that his profile picture on Instagram was him looking like SpongeBob SquarePants.
Yeah, he loves SpongeBob.
It just goes to show how soft-hearted, how kind he was, and he was truly a kind person. I'm sure I didn't know him as much as his teammates did or his friends did, but he was such a gentle giant, soft-hearted person. And Rene Baterbonia, I got to speak to him for a little while during the NBTC tournament this year. He was mild-mannered, he was kind, soft-spoken, but there was a determination in his eyes that was evident, not just to me, but everyone who met him. And that's how I'm going to remember those two human beings.
Thank you,
Always.
Naveen. Norman?
Napaisip ako doon.
Yeah.
Yeah, grabe, no? The things that happen when a crisis appears. No? And I'm sure this will not be the last crisis. No? And while it might have been centuries since the Jesuits were expelled from the Philippines, I'm sure there will be some other crisis in some other form sometime. But again, I'd still like to believe, as I did mention when we opened the show, no? Siguro biased ako dahil mahal ko ang Ateneo, no? But the response is already built into our system. No, I think all we need to do is to look inwards and to remember the values that have been taught to us. No, magis, cura personality, cura personalis, being a person for others. Doon pala ang dami nating paghuhugutan in the way that we respond to the next crisis that will come. It's not going to be so difficult. We just need to look inwards.
And the way we resolve this one, because we're not quite out of the woods, right?
There you go.
Yeah, we need to. Okay, thank you, Norman. Bill?
Well, again, thanks, Pia, for having us on this podcast. And, it's good to see you again. It's been
After years,
over a decade, no? Na ulit
more.
tayo nakita. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably two.
Sa ABS pa yun.
Oo. Nung unang panahon. No, but siguro, for me, the big picture is, hamon ito sa atin bilang isang kultura that we react, we don't respond. We spew out emotions without processing. No, siguro bilang Pilipino, balansehin natin, no? Naghahanap tayo ng kagagalitan natin, madalas galit tayo sa mundo. 'Di ba? And again, not blame, responsibility. Who was in charge? Doon kayo magalit. Yun ang putukan ninyo, hindi yung kasi Ateneo, ganyan. Di para mo nang sinabing kasi yung Pilipinas may Ateneo, yung mundo may Pilipinas, may Ateneo, may basketball. It will never end. No? And so let's stop this chain of hurting each other, this chain of harshness, vindictiveness. No? Hindi naman ganoon ang mga Pilipino Kaya gusto mong pumunta ng mga tao dito sa bansa natin dahil ang trato natin sa tagalabas parang pamilya, di ba? So let's remember that, no? This is a tragedy that could have been prevented, but not everyone is to blame. No, wag natin sisihin ang Ateneo bilang institusyon na dapat ganito, dapat ganyan. Wag na. Hindi naman makakatulong yan At the end of the day, we get to the bottom of it. We weed out the unsavory people who did something wrong and perhaps willfully did something wrong. And then let's move forward and let's make this a chance for us to heal together and change a system that caused this to happen.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much to my guests on this podcast, 1 hour and 10 minutes, one of the longest ever. Second only to the one with Keith and Sam, by the way. So, Naveen Ganglani. Naveen, thank you very much for being here. Norman Agatep. Norman, thank you for being here. And Bill Velasco. Bill, thank you very much for being here. And thank you, of course, to everybody who's watching and listening. I'm Pio Ontiveros. Let's keep talking.